The first time I saw a human special forces operator in action, I was convinced my species had made a terrible mistake. Let me back up. I'm Vokrath, a Krell information broker operating out of the Outer Fringe, one of those delightful corners of the galaxy where civilized law is more of us. For the better part of 3 decades, I'd been selling intel to the highest bidder, pirates, warlords, the occasional democratically elected official who'd momentarily forgotten their morals. Good times, really. And in all those years, I'd watched mercenaries from every known species hunt down targets across 1,000 worlds. Zelnar shock troops, Prixian assassins, even the terrifying Hask death squads. But humans? Oh, humans were new to the galactic stage, barely a century out from their little blue marble. Most of us figured they'd be easy prey, soft targets for the established players. After all, they didn't have adaptive camouflage like the Thane, or the 6 arms of a Gorvak warrior, or the telepathic coordination of the collective species. They were just bipedal mammals with decent manual dexterity and an alarming fondness for caffeinated beverages. So when the Syndicate, that Syndicate, the one that controls half the black market trade in 3 sectors, put out a bounty on a human special operations team, every mercenary worth their plasma rifle came crawling out of the shadows. The prize was substantial, 50 million credits, plus salvage rights to whatever gear these humans were carrying. The job seemed simple enough. 5 human operators had infiltrated a Syndicate weapons facility on Keras 7, stolen prototype energy weapons, and vanished into the toxic jungles that cover 90% of that miserable planet. I was there when the briefing happened, recording everything for my own records. Knowledge is profit, after all. The Syndicate's head of security, a massive Draxian named Korthax with mandibles that could snap steel, addressed the assembled hunters. There were maybe 40 of them, representing a dozen species, all armed to the teeth and sporting enough attitude to terraform a planet through sheer arrogance alone. 5 targets. Korthax clicked, his translator rendering the chittering into standard galactic. Human military designation. Special Forces. Naval Special Warfare Development Group. They have a 3-day head start, but Keras 7 is a death world. Acid rain. Predators with neurotoxins. Vegetation that can sense bioelectric fields. They won't survive a week. Find them, eliminate them, return the prototypes. A Hask mercenary captain named Jex'thor. 7 feet of scaled muscle and sociopathic tendencies laughed, a sound like grinding gravel. 3 days, against environmental hazards and 40 hunters. These humans are already dead, they just don't know it yet. Oh, Jex'thor. Sweet, stupid Jex'thor. If only you'd known what was coming. The hunt began at dawn, such as it was on Keras 7, where the sun barely penetrated the thick, churning cloud cover. The mercenaries spread out in coordinated teams, using high-tech sensors to scan for human biosignatures, heat traces, anything that would give away the operator's position. They had gunships in the air, drones skimming the canopy, ground teams with tracking hounds, one of those species that can follow a scent trail across 3 star systems. By hour 6, they'd found nothing. Not a single trace. No heat signatures, no broken vegetation, no waste products, no electromagnetic emissions from their equipment. It was as if the humans had simply evaporated into the toxic atmosphere. Jex'thor, commanding from a mobile base camp, was getting irritated. I could see it in the way his scales flushed darker, the tension in his movements. Expand the search grid, he snarled. They're out there. Nobody's that good. That's when the first team went dark. It was a 4-person Zelnar squad, experienced hunters who tracked targets across 100 worlds. They'd been sweeping the eastern quadrant when their comms went silent mid-transmission. No distress call, no weapons fire detected, no nothing. Just Jex'thor sent another team to investigate. They found the Zelnars 3 hours later, all 4 of them unconscious, stripped of their weapons and communications gear, their armor's power cells meticulously removed. Someone had even taken the time to arrange them in a neat row, like they were sleeping. The only clue was a small piece of paper. Actual paper, can you imagine? Tucked into the squad leader's vest. Written in perfect Zelnar script. You should go home. The message should have been a warning. Instead, it pissed everyone off. They're mocking us. Korthax transmitted to all teams. Double the patrols. I want overlapping sensor coverage. Constant communication checks every 10 minutes. No team smaller than 6 individuals. These humans are about to learn what happens when you embarrass the syndicate. Oh, the delicious irony. They thought they were the hunters, you see. They truly believed that superior numbers, better technology, and home field advantage would be enough. They'd forgotten the most important rule of predation. Sometimes, the prey is more dangerous than you are. Over the next 2 days, 7 more teams went down. Not killed. That's the thing that really got under everyone's scales and skin and exoskeletal plates. Just neutralized. A Prixian duo woke up dangling from a tree, their gear missing, their translator units displaying another message. Seriously, leave while you can. A Gorvac heavy squad got ambushed in a canyon. They reported seeing nothing, hearing nothing, just felt impacts and woke up hours later with splitting headaches and their weapons missing. One team's tracker claimed he saw a shadow move just a flicker in his peripheral vision before everything went dark. The humans were ghosts, and they were playing with their hunters like a cat with particularly stupid mice. I have to admit, I was fascinated. I'd been monitoring the communications traffic, watching the growing panic spread through the mercenary ranks. These were hardened killers, beings who'd fought in wars, toppled governments, hunted the most dangerous prey in the galaxy. And 5 humans were making them look like amateur hour at the academy. Jex'thor, to his credit, or his stubbornness, hard to tell which, refused to call it off. We have them outnumbered 8-1, he argued during a tense command meeting that I definitely wasn't supposed to be listening to. They can't keep this up forever. They'll make a mistake, reveal their position, and when they do, we'll have them. That's when the humans decided to stop playing. It happened on the 3rd night. The remaining mercenary teams had fortified their positions, creating overlapping fields of fire, sensor nets, automated defense turrets, the works. They were ready for anything, or so they thought. Jex'thor had even brought in 2 armored walkers, massive 12-foot-tall combat machines bristling with enough firepower to level a city block. The attack began at 0300 local time, and it started with laughter. Someone, somehow, hacked into the mercenary communication network and broadcast a recording. It was a human voice, male, with an accent I later learned was from some place called Brooklyn on Earth. Hey there, folks. This is Chief Petty Officer Ramos. We just wanted to say thanks for the equipment donations. Really top-shelf stuff you've been carrying. But we've got what we came for, and honestly, you're all terrible at this whole hunting thing. So here's the deal. We're leaving Kara 7 in about 6 hours, and we'd really prefer not to hurt anyone. So maybe pack up, head home. Tell your bosses you gave it your best shot. No shame in losing to the best, right? Then, more laughter. Not mocking, exactly, but amused. Like they were genuinely enjoying themselves. Jex'thor went incandescent with rage. You arrogant primates. You think you can— The broadcast cut off, replaced by a new voice. This one was female, calm, with a slight drawl. Multiple targets, thermal and visual, approaching from all vectors. They're not accepting our generous offer, Chief. Their funeral, Ramos replied cheerfully. Light 'em up, Kira. What happened next was, well, surgical is the only word that fits. The first armored walker exploded, not from a massive rocket hit or anything dramatic, but from a series of small, precisely placed charges on its joints and power core. Someone had gotten close enough to manually plant explosives without being detected. The second walker's pilot abandoned his vehicle 30 seconds later when his entire cockpit filled with smoke grenades delivered through a ventilation port that, according to the manufacturer, didn't exist in that model. Then the humans hit the fortified positions. I was watching through hacked security feeds, and I still can't quite explain what I saw. The humans moved through the defenses like water through cracks, flowing, adapting, never where the sensors said they should be. One moment a guard would be scanning his sector, the next he'd be on the ground, unconscious without firing a shot or calling for help. Automated turrets would swivel toward a heat signature, only to find nothing there. The humans were using the environment itself as camouflage, matching their thermal output to the ambient temperature of the jungle. One of them, I think it was Ramos, actually waved at a security camera before spray painting over the lens. The central command post, where Jex'thor had barricaded himself with a dozen elite guards, held out for almost 20 minutes. Then the power went out. Then the backup power. Then the emergency reserves. They'd systematically cut every power source, leaving Jex'thor and his guards in absolute darkness with only their personal lights and growing paranoia for company. When the lights came back on, and they did, because apparently the humans had control of the entire electrical grid, Jex'thor was alone in the command post. His guards were outside, unconscious and neatly stacked like cordwood, and sitting on his desk was another note, this one written in Draxian, his native language. We could have killed all of you. Remember that. Remember who gave you mercy. DVGRU. Jex'thor stared at that note for a long time. Then he did something I'd never seen a Hask do in 3 decades of observation. He activated the retreat signal. The surviving mercenaries, maybe 25 of the original 40, extracted from Keras 7 within 6 hours, leaving behind millions of credits worth of equipment and exactly 0 recovered prototypes. The humans vanished into the jungle, and by the time Syndicate reinforcements arrived, they were long gone, extracted by a stealth ship that had been lurking in orbit the entire time. The aftermath was where things got really interesting, and where my own understanding of humans shifted from academic curiosity to something approaching genuine respect or possibly terror. The line gets blurry. Word spread fast. In my line of work, information travels at the speed of greed, and every mercenary guild, bounty hunter collective and freelance operator in 3 sectors heard about the Keras 7 disaster within 48 hours. The Syndicate tried to suppress the story, of course. Nobody wants to advertise that 5 humans made fools of 40 professional killers, but you can't suppress that kind of humiliation, not when it's that spectacular. I made a fortune selling the security footage alone, heavily encrypted, naturally, with enough plausible deniability to keep the Syndicate from spacing me. But that wasn't what fascinated me. What got my attention was what happened next, when other organizations started putting out bounties on human special forces operators. You'd think the Keras 7 incident would serve as a warning. You would be wrong. 3 weeks after Jex'thor's inglorious retreat, a Prixian cartel called the Crimson Chain posted a bounty on a human spec ops team that had raided one of their stim production facilities on Helix Prime. The prize was 100 million credits, double the Syndicate's offer, and the Crimson Chain's reputation for ruthlessness meant hunters came out of retirement for this one. Among them was a legendary mercenary named Thane, a Krellic who'd successfully hunted targets for 30 years without a single failure. Thane was the kind of operator other operators told stories about, methodical, patient, brilliant, and absolutely without mercy. He lasted 4 days. I got my hands on Thane's personal logs afterward. Don't ask how, professional secrets and all that. And they made for fascinating reading. The human team he was hunting consisted of only 3 operators this time. Call signs Frost, Mako, and Vandal. Thane had tracked them to the industrial sector of Helix Prime, a maze of factories, warehouses, and processing plants that stretched for hundreds of square kilometers. Day 1, Thane's log was confident. Targets confirmed in Sector 7 Alpha. Standard human physiology means limited endurance, requiring regular rest and caloric intake. Urban environment negates their apparent junglecraft advantages. Containment strategy initiated. Day 2. First signs of uncertainty. Targets have evaded 3 separate ambush points. They appear to have complete knowledge of my positioning, despite counter-surveillance measures. Possibility. Inside information. Recommend comm security audit. Day 3. The confidence was gone. Lost visual contact with secondary team. Found them alive but unconscious. Weapons missing. Targets left another message. They know my name. They know my service record. How? Day 4, his final entry. They're not running, they're hunting me. Abort mission, immediate extraction recommended. These humans, they're not soldiers. They're something else entirely. Thane survived. Barely. By doing something he'd never done before. He surrendered. Just walked into an open plaza, set down his weapons, and waited. Frost, the team leader, appeared from a ventilation shaft. Thane's sensors swore was too small for a human to fit through. They had a conversation, right there in the middle of Helix Prime, that Thane's recorder captured. "You're good," Frost said, his voice calm, almost friendly. "Best we've faced since going operational in this sector." Thane's mandibles clicked in frustration. "You've been toying with me." "Assessing you," Frost corrected. "There's a difference. You're smart enough to know when you're beaten. That's rare. So here's the deal. You walk away, Spread the word that hunting human spec ops is a losing proposition, and we all get to live another day. Deal? Thane, a being who'd built his reputation on never backing down, never compromising, agreed immediately. Deal. Smart choice, Frost said. And then, and this is the part that really got to Thane, he handed back all the equipment his team had taken from Thane's squad. Every weapon, every piece of tech, completely undamaged. Professional courtesy, Frost explained. You tried to do this clean, no civilians at risk, followed the rules of engagement. We respect that. Then the three humans disappeared, literally vanished while Thane was checking his returned gear, and were off-planet within the hour. But here's what made that encounter significant. Thane kept his word. He published a full brief on human special forces capabilities across every mercenary network he had access to, with a simple conclusion: do not engage, not worth the risk, regardless of bounty offered. You'd think that would be enough. You would still be wrong, because ego, pride, and sheer stubborn stupidity are universal constants, apparently. The hunters who ignored Thane's warning fell into roughly three categories: the young and arrogant who thought they were better than everyone who'd failed before them, the desperate who needed the money badly enough to risk it, and the genuinely talented who saw human spec ops as the ultimate test of their abilities. All three categories learned the same lesson, usually painfully. There was Crix, a Hask stealth specialist who spent 6 weeks tracking a human team through the asteroid fields of the Corvin Belt. He finally got them cornered, or so he thought, in an abandoned mining station. Turned out the humans had deliberately led him there, and they'd spent those 6 weeks systematically studying his tactics, his equipment, his patterns. When Crix breached the station, he found himself facing a perfect replica of his own ambush strategies. The humans had literally learned his playbook and used it against him. He woke up 12 hours later, locked in his own ship's storage bay, with a recording of his entire operation and a note: study this, learn, do better. There was Solara, a Thane phase shifter, who could turn nearly invisible through biological light refraction. She was so confident in her abilities that she took a contract solo, one Thane hunter against a 6-person human special forces team on the swamp world of Moros 3. The humans couldn't see her, true, but apparently they didn't need to. They used thermal imaging, vibration sensors, even atmospheric pressure changes to track her movements. When she tried to attack, they were ready, firing not at where she was, but where she would have to be in the next 3 seconds based on her approach vector. Military precognition through pure tactical analysis. Solara survived with severe concussion damage and a newfound respect for human pattern recognition abilities. And then there was the incident that really drove the point home, the one that made even the most arrogant hunters reconsider. The Obsidian Covenant. You know them, right? Elite mercenary company, military-grade equipment, extensive training, reputation for taking on impossible contracts. They accepted a bounty on a human special warfare unit that had embarrassed a corporate executive on Novara Station. The Covenant deployed 30 operators, their best, with full intelligence support and orbital assets. The humans numbered 8. It took 6 hours. 6 hours for 8 human operators to systematically dismantle 30 Covenant mercenaries, infiltrate their command ship in orbit, copy all their tactical databases, leave evidence of their intrusion where it couldn't be missed, and extract without killing a single person. The Covenant's commander, a decorated veteran named Koreth, who'd fought in 4 major wars, watched security footage of the human team leader callsign Bishop, standing in the middle of his ship's bridge, surrounded by unconscious crew, and saluting the camera before vanishing into a ventilation shaft. Koreth disbanded the Obsidian Covenant the next day. Just gave up. Returned all active contracts, liquidated assets, and retired. When asked why, he simply said, "I've fought the best warriors from a dozen species. Those humans aren't warriors. They're ghosts with guns, and I'm too old to hunt ghosts." That's when I started to understand what made human special forces so uniquely terrifying. It wasn't strength. Plenty of species are stronger. It wasn't technology. The humans were actually using fairly standard gear, nothing their opponents didn't have access to. It wasn't even their tactical knowledge, impressive as it was. It was adaptability. Pure, relentless, almost frightening adaptability. Every species I'd encountered had specific advantages: Zelnar strength, Prixian speed, Thane stealth, Krellic strategic thinking. and every species fought to their advantages, using the same basic playbook refined over centuries of warfare. It made them predictable. Humans studied their opponents, identified their advantages, and then either negated those advantages or turned them into weaknesses. Fighting Zelnars, target their heavy armor's joint seals and mobility limitations. Up against Prixian speed, use area denial weapons and predictive firing patterns. Facing then stealth specialists, deploy sensors that don't rely on visible light. Every engagement was a learning opportunity, every opponent a puzzle to solve, and they never, ever stopped learning. I interviewed a dozen hunters who'd survived encounters with human spec ops, strictly confidential. Obviously, I do have some professional ethics. They all said variations of the same thing. It was like fighting an enemy who knew everything I was going to do before I did it, not because humans were psychic, but because they were paying attention in a way that other species simply didn't. One Gorvak mercenary described it like this: "We train to execute perfect tactics. Humans train to exploit imperfect ones. Every species has patterns, assumptions, doctrines we follow without thinking. Humans find those patterns and shatter them." By month 3, after the Kara 7 incident, bounties on human special forces had become what we in the information brokerage business call poisoned contracts. Sure, the money was incredible. Some were up to 500 million credits by that point, but nobody wanted them. Smart hunters wouldn't touch them. Desperate hunters learned their lesson fast, and the genuinely talented ones had better things to do than throw themselves against an unbeatable opponent. The syndicate finally canceled their standing bounties on human operators 6 months after Kara 7. Publicly, they claimed it was because the targets had left syndicate space. Privately, and I know this because I have sources everywhere, their security council had concluded that attempting to hunt human spec ops was counterproductive. Every attempt just gave the humans more intelligence on syndicate tactics, equipment, and operations. They were literally paying to train their enemies. Jex'thor, incidentally, never took another contract. Last I heard, he was running a small security consulting firm on the Outer Rim, training corporate guards. He refuses to discuss Kara 7, but he's been known to tell younger mercenaries, "If you ever get a contract on human spec ops, turn it down. I don't care how much they're offering. Turn it down and walk away." As for me, I've shifted my business model. Instead of selling information to hunters trying to catch humans, I now sell information to organizations trying to avoid antagonizing them. It's more profitable and significantly less likely to result in me becoming an object lesson. Because here's what I've learned in 40 years of watching the galaxy's best killers hunt the galaxy's most dangerous prey. There's always a better predator, and sometimes that predator is a species you underestimated, from a little blue world on the unfashionable end of a minor spiral arm, who learned to hunt in environments so hostile that the entire galaxy became their training ground. The humans have a saying. Ramos mentioned it in that broadcast from Kara 7. "We're not locked in here with you, you're locked in here with us." Turns out, when the prey becomes the predator, the smart money isn't on who has the biggest guns or the best tech. It's on who learns faster, adapts better, and never ever underestimates their opponent. So that's why no alien mercenary will hunt human special forces, not anymore at least, not if they value their life, reputation, and equipment. The bounties are still out there, numbers getting bigger every year, and they'll probably stay posted forever as monuments to institutional stupidity. But they'll stay uncollected. Because even mercenaries eventually learn from their mistakes, and the lesson here is crystal clear. Don't hunt humans. They're better at it than you are. They enjoy the challenge way too much. And worst of all, they'll let you live to spread the word. And that, my friends, is the most terrifying thing of all.